Get ready to embrace debate. First Take starts now.
What you can hear, ladies and gentlemen, is somebody's blood pressure going up.
Fly ball to deep right, blanks to the track. It is gone. Viva Puig.
Clowney just says, I'll take care of business right here.
This has just left me physically sick.
And I would just love it as if he starts running out onto the field, all of a sudden the guy from MLB goes, whoa, whoa.
Jordan driving. He'll go for it. Yeah, he got it. He got it. He got it.
I would rather my quarterback completed 1 in 100 passes if we win the game.
You never see a team play harder than we will the rest of this season.
What a hit.
In the air to left field. Going back on it. It is gone!
He's just an arse.
He likes blocking people, unlike the Green Bay Packers offensive line.
Can't teach that, can you? And you can't defend that.
How stupid is Gina Mizell?
This is ridiculously stupid.
I'm LeBron James from Akron, Ohio. I'm blessed.
You're listening to First Take UK with Stephen Edwards, but first, Ollie Connolly.
Hello everyone, welcome to First Take UK. Hope all is going well wherever you are. Welcome into this edition, Stephen. This is our, 5th or 4th? Depends which way you look at it, because we've done Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We're here now on Thursday. Thursday night football is in our midst, as is Sunday football. It's another weekend, Stephen, of NCAA college football and NFL football, not to mention baseball. Seasons closing to an end, seedings have to be sorted out in playoffs, wildcard positions have to be sorted out in playoffs. It is a crazy time in US sports, and Stephen Edwards, we have an exclusive, because we have someone with us who is the only beat writer on the Oklahoma State football program, and we know what's going down there. We've covered it off twice. The third installment came out today talking about drugs. We have that there female, the only lead writer that covers simply Oklahoma State University football. She joins us on this show, chatting to you earlier on, Stephen Evans. First of all, how are you, sir?
I'm really well. And touching on that, the 5 nights a week, I actually believe this is the first time we've actually done 5 nights a week, because last week you forgot to pay the electricity bill, so we couldn't actually go ahead as you scrambled around for some 50p pieces. But this week we've got electricity, we have internet, we are ready to go.
We are, and it's funny that you say that, because we do advertise it as 5 nights a week, and it's good that we finally make good on the promise. I think it's very good of us. We're going to have plenty of new listeners tonight as well, which I'm excited about. I'm very excited about that. We seem to have had lots of interaction over the last few days, which is good stuff on our end. You can, of course, get in touch with us at UK First Take on Twitter. You can find all the links to the show, because right now you might be listening to this thing through a direct stream, but you know what? What might suit you better is a YouTube channel or an iTunes channel. You take your pick. Go to ukfirsttake.wordpress.com. Click on the Where to Find Us section. Has every single link you could ask for. You can get the thing straight to you as soon as I upload it at what amounts to 3 a.m. in the morning, depending on where you are in the world. It doesn't matter, because that is the time that I do it at, relative to wherever you are. Stephen Edwards, what have you been up to today?
I've been busy in meetings all day. That's about as exciting as it gets for me. So literally, when you go into meetings all day, you kind of shut yourself away from the outside world. So anything that took place in the world of sports from about 9 o'clock this morning till 5 o'clock this afternoon just didn't mean anything to me. So I was playing massive catch up when I got out on my commute home, trying to find out this and that, what was going on, what was coming on in respect to the Oklahoma State saga and everything else that we've got on tap for tonight's show. And then a message from Ollie saying, would you very kindly speak to Gina Mizell about the Oklahoma State allegations? I was like, yeah, of course I can. You know, I'm always up for doing an interview. But, it's been a very enjoyable day. We've got tomorrow's Friday, and then we've got the weekend of big college football, big NFL football. We've got a hoops aid at the weekend that we're going to be at. This is just an unbelievable weekend of action, both live and also in front of us on the TV.
We are absolutely loaded. I am fantastic. I have had an absolutely incredible day. The thing that childhood dreams are made of was what this day was for me, Stephen Edwards, because I woke up this morning, I was sort of pottering around, I was in a dressing gown. My girlfriend bought me this dressing gown for Christmas, which is probably the second time I've worn it today. It felt like a dressing gown sort of day. I just felt lazy, and I was like, you know what? I spent the last few days watching every single thing that happened in week 2 of college football and week 1 of NFL football, and this was essentially my day off, because obviously Thursday night football kicks off. Then I'm in week 2 of the NFL and week 3 of college football, so it was essentially a day off in the dressing gown, drinking some coffee, having a nice drink. I decided, Stephen Evans, to devote my day to sitting here in my office on Skype, ringing the NCAA, ringing Oklahoma State University, and ringing LSU, trying to get some word on Les Miles, Mike Gundy, the whole saga fiasco that Sports Illustrated are reporting. I did all the legwork, Stephen Edwards. I managed to grab the only, Oklahoma State University football writer that exists in this landscape, and then you, like the Ahmad Bradshaw of the Indianapolis Colts, vultured the interview at the last minute.
Well, it's just I got the interview because unfortunately yourself was busy, but it doesn't matter who got the interview.
That's true, it's a team.
The fact is, as a team, we managed to get a lovely lady on the show to talk about the Oklahoma State saga, and that's what we do at First Take. Myself and Ollie will do everything in our power to bring you exclusives, bring you interviews, and bring you everything that we can.
And like I told you, Stephen, I was rebuffed by the NCAA, and it was almost funny the way that it went down. I spoke to a wonderful woman there, and I'm sure her name was Marilyn, but it might have been Marilyn. I can't actually remember. She picked up the phone to me. I say who I am, where I'm from, what I'm asking about. She says, yeah, of course, nods and all that over the phone. Obviously, I don't know. And she gives me this number to call. I ring the number, and it's essentially, I believe, like I told you, it's a fake number. I think they do this to everyone, and they just say, yeah, ring this number, they'll give you all the quotes and what have you, what is the party line. She gives me the number, it just rings out forever. So I think this is what they do. I think the NCAA have got this nice little world that they're built into, where they hand out these fake numbers to people like myself, and I just ring it and there's no response.
They probably also listen into the calls as well, just for a giggle, and you've actually been on speakerphone. And they're probably running a little bit of a sweepstake to see how long I remain on the line.
Yeah, that's true. And it was a long time, because of course I'm not doing anything all day. So that's how I spent my day. It was very interesting, a fun day for me. We got lots to debate tonight, lots to talk about. Mark Sanchez is done for the year. We're going to talk about him. We got 2 huge games this weekend that are just literally stop everything you're doing. This is not a watch back on Game Pass sort of game, or watch back on ESPN Player sort of games that we have this weekend. We have Texas A&M, Johnny Football, the repeat, the rematch, going up against Alabama Crimson Tide and Nick Saban's defense. And we have potentially the 2 best teams in football, pro football, Stephen. The 49ers facing the Seahawks. Then, people may not know this, Stephen Edwards, we've got new listeners. We go to a charity event, the pair of us, charity basketball event here in the UK, in London. I am travelling down south. It's the return, the true return of Connolly back down south to the capital city for Hoops Aid, for everyone down there, Lance Haggard and his son. It's just going to be an epic event. 3 epic events this weekend: A&M, Bama, Hoops Aid, and then the huge matchup between the Seahawks and then their 49ers.
And you got Manning Bowl as well.
I forgot Manning Bowl. I also forgot tonight, as we record this, we're a couple of hours away from kickoff, of the Jets versus the P-A-T-S, Pats. That's what we got going on tonight. My New England Patriots. We got the New York Jets, Rex Ryan, Geno Smith, coming into Foxborough. My New England Patriots in a bad state, Stephen. I'm not gonna lie. There's no BS on my end. You know that I don't BS around football. I weigh up everything, and I know they're not in a good state. But you tell you what, tonight Tom Brady is 4-0 against rookie quarterbacks. The New England Patriots 4-0 against rookie quarterbacks. And we'll get onto our picks right at the end of the show. I got a good feeling about tonight. I
If you're right, you should have a good feeling about tonight. I mean, I don't necessarily think this is going to be a close game as some people think there is. I think it's like everything else. Everyone wants to knock off one of the top dogs. And anytime the top dog is having a little bit of a bad time with injuries or anything like that, then everyone tries to make a case for how to beat that team. But Yeah, we'll get into a bit more deeper later on, but I'm not convinced by a lot of things I'm hearing at the moment.
Okay, we've got some questions to get to. A late question that we'll just cover off pretty briefly. Then we're going to get on to Gina Mizell from newsoka.com, giving us some updates on the Oklahoma State University, how they're responding to the allegations. But first, Stephen Edwards, 2.A. How to get in touch with us at First Take UK, at UK First Take. I got that wrong again. At UK First Take, or myself at Ollie UKEZ. I am Oliver Connolly, like the voice said right at the top of the show. Stephen Edwards is at DRose UK 36. And a warning from us, Stephen. Warning. This is going to be a longer show. For one simple fact, and this is for the listeners, not for us. We're the ones giving up the time, if you think about it logically. Because we're here, we did Sunday through Thursday, and now the sport really starts. So now we have Thursday through Sunday. We got a lot to cover off, a lot of ground to cover. And like I said to you before the show, I'd recommend, this is probably going to touch the 2-hour mark. I recommend, if you want to keep your sanity after listening to my voice for a long time, split it up yourselves. Go 1 hour, over a day or two, you know? Go 1 hour. The stuff isn't going to be outdated by the time Saturday morning rolls round. Go 1 hour, wash your car, do whatever you want to do. Do 1 hour just chilling, 1 hour in work on a Friday when this will land with you. And then do 1 hour over the weekend before football season gets going again. So that's how I recommend it, Stephen Edwards. It's going to be a long one. It's going to be enjoyable. I reckon we just kick it straight off. I reckon we jump straight into the Gina Mizell interview. Stephen Edwards, you yapping away with Gina.
Why not? Let's go with that.
Let's go with that. Okay, so we straight off the bat asked Gina to just fill us in with what the hell is going on there in OSU.
Well, it's certainly been interesting. Obviously, this has been a 5-part series that has rolled out over a period of several days. We've seen the first 3 parts. We'll get the 4th part tomorrow, and then the 5th part next Tuesday. And it's unfortunate, but it's a lot of the same stuff that we've seen in other scandals around college football. The boosters providing money to players, academic scandal, misconduct across with tutors providing work to players, or professors providing grades that weren't earned, and then today's allegations about just a pretty rampant drug culture with lots of marijuana use and dealing and a lax drug testing policy. When you look at all this kind of stuff, the academic stuff, I don't think was maybe quite as bad as it could have been. The drug stuff obviously has a shock value, but I think the allegation that a former assistant coach, Joe DeForest, was paying players, was running a bonus system, that's probably the most shocking so far, the one that could have the most repercussions, just because Joe DeForest is still employed in college football at the University of West Virginia, and he could be in some trouble if this turns out to be true.
What do you see happening to him, obviously, if these allegations are true?
I don't think he can keep his job, and I think it would be pretty difficult for him to be employed anywhere in college football. I mean, that's a serious allegation, and to put it in perspective, I mean, I talked to several players who played under him in recent seasons, and they said they were never a part of something like that, but obviously other former players have alleged that, so there's still a lot to sort through with all this kind of stuff, but I think he would be the person who would be in the most trouble, just based on what I've read so far.
What do you think Oklahoma State will do in terms of the allegations?
Well, they've already hired brought in an NCAA investigator to come in and to look at things, and the NCAA can be a little bit slow as far as their investigations go, so it'll be quite interesting to see how long this goes on for. But the administration here, athletic director Mike Holder, the president Burns Hargis, I think they've taken the correct approach so far, and that they're like, let's read all these stories, let's get all the stuff digested, and then let's take the opportunity to examine what we've got and to look at what's good, to look at what potentially needs to be improved, and kind of go from there. So if nothing else, this is going to be an opportunity for Oklahoma State to examine itself and to really look at how they're operating things, and I'm sure there are improvements that probably need to be made. But as far as NCAA punishments, again, from what I've seen right now, I don't see any major violations. There might be some minor ones, some stuff that will require a slap on the wrist, but so far, based on what I've seen, I think they're okay as far as the NCAA is concerned.
So you only really see like a slap on the wrist. You don't see any potential of bowl game eligibility and things like that.
No, and people like to bring up Southern Methodist University, the whole SMU scandal in the like 20 years ago, and I don't see, they got the death penalty, which is the program suspended for a couple of years. I don't see anything like that, or even anything like the Penn State scandal last year. Obviously, those allegations are completely different than this type of stuff, and way more serious. But so I don't think it'll be one of those types of situations. Just again, based on what I've read so far, the statute of limitations is 4 years in the NCAA, so that's something to keep in mind as well. But certainly, again, if nothing else, an opportunity for Oklahoma State to kind of look at itself in the mirror and figure out the best way to go to try to improve.
Something that I've read about today is you brought up SMU there, was that at that particular time it was a really big shock when those particular allegations come down. Is it more of a case these days that people are not as shocked when they start hearing things like this that have happened within a college program?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it, just because, unfortunately, the world we live in, I'm not condoning it whatsoever, but the bottom line is this goes on all over the country, and this is just the underbelly of college football in the United States, so to speak. There are donors that give money. There's academic misconduct, and guess what? There's academic misconduct if you're in the engineering school and just a normal student. There's people cheat, people don't do things the right way, and it's unfortunate, and it's not correct, and I wish it wasn't that way, but the bottom line is that it is, and the more that I look at this, it's just kind of like Oklahoma State was picked as a case study, so to speak, and to kind of almost just show you everything that can be wrong in college football, and Oklahoma State just kind of happened to be the example that they used, and I'm sure they could go to several other schools around the country and essentially come up with very similar reports.
I mean, do you think it's a case of like the NCAA are more reactive rather than proactive with things like this?
Yeah, and I think, again, there have been a lot of examples over the years where, the NCAA has kind of proven to be a faulty system in a lot of ways. Again, you look at the idea that players are not paid beyond their scholarship, and that's a whole different debate on if college athletes who are making so much money for their university and making so much money in television dollars and merchandise sales and all that stuff, should they be compensated more? The NCAA doesn't allow that, and maybe it's time to examine that. Again, there's certain other policies that are just university problems, like I mentioned, the academic stuff. That stuff goes on everywhere from every level of school and beyond. So the NCAA, again, it's kind of just an example of maybe that sort of governing body isn't necessarily the right way to go, or again, maybe we need to examine things with that system more, and examples like that will kind of just continue to bring that type of stuff to light. Again, this is just the latest example of several college scandals that have been exposed over recent years and even dating back further, and the NCAA has kind of proven to not exactly be proactive, as you said.
No.
There she is then, Stephen, the lovely Gina Mizell.
What a wonderful guest on our show, and gave up her time to answer our questions around what the current situation is on Oklahoma State, what the ramifications are likely to be, her thoughts on the NCAA as a whole, and absolutely brilliant. And we do thank Gina very much for her time that she took out of her day to be able to speak to us.
Yeah, if you want to keep up to date with Gina on her thoughts and her reporting to do with this whole Oklahoma State University allegations and the whole saga going on there, as we put it, she is at Gina Mizell. That's GinaMizell, and then she writes for newsok.com, NEWSOK.com. That's where you can find her writing, talking about all these allegations and everything to do with Oklahoma State University football. Like I said, Stephen, lots of Cowboys fans in this country. I find that as a college football writer. There seems to be lots of Cowboys fans. I think it's got something to do with Brandon Weeden. I think they like that story. Alright, let's delve straight into this scenario then. She's just told us all about what she thinks about it. And I have some different opinions. I'm allowed to, Stephen. Just because she's the expert does not mean that I have to, completely sign off with it. Let's get straight into it with just recapping with people what's come out today. So we're on day 3 of 5. This isn't 5 as well, which is quite interesting. It's not 5 back-to-back, because it's 4, then a break, then 5, which makes me think the hammer's really going to drop on day 5. I don't know about you. I think the hammer's really going to drop on day 5. Today was the drug day, a day that I thought could really get Les Miles, which is where most of my focus is. I think a lot of this is getting pinned on the Oklahoma State University football program, and my focus is straight at Les Miles. I want to see how he's going to handle this, because the head coaching rule wasn't in place when this was going down, and I'm just thinking, if it was in place, just how much limbo this guy would be in. Let's just remind everyone, Stephen, then, to recap some of the main points from the article from SI today.
I mean, this is talking about recreational drug use, marijuana, and it seemed as though people turned a blind eye to it and were pretty much aware of what was happening. They did little to deter the use of this drug. Various former players have been spoken to with regards to this, again, as part of this article, which for me has turned into an absolute soap opera. Some people might call it a serial with it being 5 episodes, but it is very much a soap opera from my point of view. And they're talking about various things of teammates dealing drugs, and I think it's the staggering thing is, meaning the program hosted an alleged or admitted drug dealer in 10 of the last 12 seasons.
Oof, man.
I mean,
I tell you, right, let me just run through these facts for people. For people who are interested in this and don't want to read the full column because their attention span doesn't span the 3 pages per day that SI are putting out there. If you follow me at Ollie UKEZ, as I said before, I break down the thing into the main points people need with no bias, Stephen. I don't care about Oklahoma State University football until this sort of thing comes across my desk. So like you said, the key point to head off, at least one confirmed drug dealer. This is people who either they have admitted themselves, which was actually 7 of them, which surprised me. 7 of them just confirmed, yeah, I did this. I dealt drugs when I was there. I was the drug dealer of the locker room. And then the rest of them ratting out 3 other guys, confirmed for 10 of the last 12 years. That goes up right till like 2011, apparently. 2011, 2012. Jesus. 30 former OSU players who were named on the football program between 2000 and 2011 told SI they'd used marijuana whilst on the football team. That one doesn't shock me too much, I guess. I think it's quite prevalent within college football. OSU players would host cocaine parties after wins. That's quite shocking, Stephen.
Yeah, I'm beginning to, absolutely hate some of this stuff that's coming out, and although I hate it, I'm not shocked by it. Oh, I don't actually think now you can shock me with anything that's going to come out of this 5-part serial. I really don't.
All right, then, continuing with what's come out. These are allegations, let's remember. I mean, a lot of it's on the record with people confirming about themselves, which I think helps a lot with credence to the story, as well as the fact that the guys have named themselves, they're on record, I think gives credence to the story. But at this time, they are still allegations. So OSU held a weekly meeting for marijuana users, called affectionately, Stephen, by the people who went to the meeting, the Weed Circle. But only star players and prospects were actually allowed to attend. Those within the Weed Circle were allowed to attend the Weed Circle. That was deemed their punishment. There was no actual punishment for the program. That was their punishment to attend this Weed Circle, as they called it. And multiple times they would actually smoke at the Weed Circle, which is a great way to give therapy to possible drug addicts. Attendees of the Weed Circle include future NFL players Tatum Bell, Darren Williams, DeGray Gertman, and Thomas Wright. So true studs of the college football program, because these guys are going on to play pro football. A Weed Circle, a supposed support group, which is within the NCAA Constitution, by the way. They allow you to host a therapy session once a week for drug violators, and it basically gets you an extra strike, because the ruling is essentially, it's not a ruling, but it's what is followed by nearly every FBS college football program, is a 3-strike rule. But if you use one of these therapy groups, it buys you an extra strike. You're basically allowed to go to the 4-strike limit. I don't know how to quantify it. I mean, but we ask this every day because we can't really debate this. but there's not really too much of a debate. And I want to go down the Les Miles angle just in a second. Again, what are your initial thoughts with this program? You said nothing shocks you now. Gina said that she doesn't think there's too many infractions, and like I said to you, that's because we've never seen this before. I mean, again, I think it's prevalent up and down the country. I think this sort of, all this drug use is probably prevalent throughout multiple colleges in America, and Gina seemed to agree with that sort of premise. But this is on the record, so it doesn't matter whether it happens everywhere or not. This one's on the record, and it's right in the football locker room. And the key point that I continue to make is right under the noses of the football coaches. It's not the usual, you go about your business as long as I don't know about it. If I didn't see it or hear it, it's absolutely fine by me. You turn up, you play football, and that's all I concentrate on. This is right under the football programs and football coaches' noses. This is going on within the locker room, and that's scary.
Yeah, I mean, this is it. I mean, it's the whole thing of it being seemingly being aware of what's going on and just turning a blind eye to it, because at the end of the day, all they're caring about is the players on the field, and that's it. And the feeling is you would have lost so many collegiate players during this time that would have effectively killed the football program. But that's the line they've taken. They're going to turn a blind eye. They'll let it go on, because at the end of the day, that's what they're looking for, is results on that field. And we've already seen, in previous episodes with the academic side of things being manipulated and the money side of things. So it seems, in some respects, they were covering all angles. The whole thing was just completely out of control. You were paying the players, you were ensuring that the whatever classes needed to be taken and test passed, that those were all taken care of. If the players were then, were quite openly using drugs, that was then, there seemed to me there was a nice flow of that coming into the program. And obviously then tomorrow we're going to hear from the escorting side of things as well, and then the final fallout. So it seems like we're not just talking about one thing, but it seems like that everything they could think of to, one, entice the player to come to the university, one, keep them at the university, and then ensure they played on the field no matter what, that was all taken care of.
It seems as though they went through the rule book one by one and said, right, let's not do this, let's not do this, let's not do this, let's break this, let's break this. It is sensational how neglectful they've been. And again, I deeply respect Gina Mizell, and I thank her so much for joining the show here and talking to us about the football program. But I disagree when she says that this seems to just be a case study and it's up and down the land. Okay, that might well be, and I believe that they went after LSU first. In my heart of hearts, I think they were going after Les Miles. I honestly believe that. That might be a bold allegation. I don't see any reason why they'd go for the national spotlight on OSU. I think they were going after Les Miles, and it trickled down, and they got themselves to Oklahoma State. People were singing like canaries. There's a difference between everyone else doing it and everyone else doing it on record and confirming to you that they dealt drugs in the locker room for 7 out of the 12 years and then accusing 3 other guys to make it 10 out of 12. That's completely different. That's no longer a case study. That is true investigative journalism, and it's doing it quite well.
Yeah, I mean they've done all the necessary investigations they felt was necessary to produce this story, and they've got the facts to back them up.
They haven't. What shocks me as well is that there were a lot of suspensions during the program at the time. I haven't got the list in front of me now, but I was looking at it earlier. I can't remember the exact figure. There's a lot of names on that list of suspensions. Surprisingly, no star, Stephen. Every guy who seemed to be a first stringer, regardless of the time of the football program, was never suspended, which is an interesting one. I don't know if that's new on you. That's very interesting. So that again shows to me the coaching staff were fully aware of everything that was going on. Not to mention one of the members of the coaching staff was the go-between. And like Gina said, that guy could never work in football again. If these are found true, how can you let that guy back into your locker room? Any locker room up and down the country. He's currently at West Virginia. I mean, you got caught. Les Miles now has been caught, with his pants down in the drawing room with the lead pipe. The guy is completely done for. In the article, it says that Les Miles is probably going to be alright. There can be no sanctions on him. And there can't be sanctions because the statute of limitation and all that. I don't know if they'll be able to prove anything right on Les Miles, but It's right all over your football program. I mean, even LSU, they have to take action themselves. There'll be no sanctions on LSU, and I'm happy about that. Shouldn't go onto the school that just because that coach is there now. I still agree with my own point that the coach should be suspended, and it should be a suspension leveled at the coach in terms of scholarships and bowl eligibility. You should put that on the head football coach, and then it's up to the program that currently employs him as to whether they want to take those sanctions on themselves. Is Les Miles worth the revenue that you would lose from being kicked off TV games and losing scholarships? I don't believe he is, but that would then be a decision for any program up and down the country to decide. That's what should happen here. It won't happen with Les Miles, but either way, LSU and Stephen, this is your football team. LSU have to get rid of this guy. His fingerprints are all over this thing.
Yeah, I'm going to trump that for the third or fourth night in a row, whatever, how long we're talking about it for. That Les Miles should be gone. If I was associated with the LSU football program, I would want that guy gone as soon as possible, because all the time he's sat in that job, he's bringing disrepute to that particular football program, that college, and the NCAA as a whole. And then we've all said that even when he comes out of that job, there's going to be other people that are quite happily just employing.
Oh yeah. But what's annoying is that either he isn't going to go. Bad looks of it. I can't see any movement for him to go. There seems to be nothing around there that Les Miles' job is in jeopardy. He's not talking about it. LSU isn't talking about it. I guess they're sort of waiting for a lot of these allegations to be confirmed. Everyone's waiting for the end of the report, which I think is massive as well. That it hasn't come out on one day. We're still waiting for the end of this, which I think finishes by the middle of next week. There's a gap between tomorrow's article and then the final part, which is just a summary of all the events and then the wrap up of it all. But again, no program is clean. I know it full well. There is no clean program in college football. It's just how clean are you, and whether the coach is clean or the coach is dirty, and how much the coach knows. Les Miles, if he doesn't know anything about this, he's the dumbest football coach in the world. If your assistant coach is handing spare socks full of tens of thousands of dollars, and you don't know about it, when apparently people are walking down the sideline saying that tackle just won me a K, you are the dumbest football coach in the world. It's that simple. So he must know about it. And LSU, the last thing LSU want is anyone sniffing around their program. I mean, everyone has skeletons in the closet. LSU will have as much as any because they're a big football program. You know, all the big schools probably have more skeletons than everyone else, Stephen. Just look at my Florida Gators. How much has been dragged through the mud with them over this past off-season, and a lot of that's been swept under the carpet. Aaron Hernandez has been there. All these boys were there, the Pouncey brothers, you know. All this went on whilst they were there with Urban Meyer. So I know all about this as a Florida Gator fan. Everyone has their skeletons. The last thing LSU want is the SI team, ESPN's bunch of outside the lines reporters rolling into their town and going through all their wardrobes trying to find a skeleton, because that's just going to turn up bad stuff as well. And if that happens to Les Miles even more, it suits him right now to get out of a job and be unemployed. Take your time, however long it is for you to get back in the game. There'll be a job offer waiting for you, probably at the end of this season, if you walked out a job right now.
Yeah, I mean, this is just so frustrating. Everyone that's involved in this and what they've done has just made this absolutely frustrating. But the thing is, I'm beginning to wonder exactly what the NCAA are going to do about this. And I do take on board some of what Gina said earlier on, that, you know, what are the NCAA going to do with this? Are the sanctions going to be that harsh? And you begin to wonder, because I think even I'm becoming numb to it, because I'm just not surprised anymore. Nothing is not shocking to me. And the thing is as well, that I think that there's a good reason why they've left a bit of a gap after tomorrow's episode. Because I think tomorrow's episode is just going to just send a few things off the charts. I think a lot of people need a bit of recovery time after what we're going to hear tomorrow, from what I gather.
Yeah, I don't think it's just that it's going to be as explosive as the other ones. I think they're all as explosive each other, but I think it's going to be quite graphic tomorrow. There's going to be some truths in there, some home truths that for a lot of programs that are going to have to stare down the barrel of what they read and be like, good God, you know, this sort of thing might happen at our program, and it's like, man, when you read it in black and white, just how how obscene it looks. I mean, to go to the extent of having this hostess service, by the way, I want to apologise last night, Stephen. I said that this was set up for this endeavour of sleeping with recruits. It was actually a service already in order. It's something Orange Order or something is the name of the hostess service, and it was a genuine service to look after recruits. And then apparently they brought in good-looking girls to sleep with the recruits. I don't know what more to say. I mean, to think that is okay. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of programs staring themselves in the mirror right now and going, we are so lucky that they did not come digging around our back garden, because, man, we want to sort some of this stuff out, and that's a good thing. That will be a good thing, because even if this doesn't kill the program in terms of the NCAA, and I side more now with Gina in terms of, I've looked through every single bit of the article again today. I went through the money side, the drug side that came out today, and the academic side. It's difficult to find something that's in the rule book that's both broken and then pure hard evidence that the statute of limitation doesn't come in on to put into some sort of punishment for the school. But in terms of the perception with the media, the public, and then trying to recruit athletes in the future, that could be a killer for the program with regards to that. So there's going to be lots of other programs who are going to have to start looking at themselves now and saying, man, we need to change some things.
No, I mean, this is it. I mean, you do go back over and read some of it, and I've done exactly the same, and sadly you do begin to realise that a lot of this does fall outside that 4-year statute limitation. So it's more a case of the how much this has tarnished a college football program, but what exactly can be done. I think I'm beginning to think now that all that can really happen is certain people to lose their jobs. That's about as far as it's going to go. The hostess program he's looking for early on is called Orange Pride.
That's the one.
And I'm not going to touch on too much on that because it's something we're going to end up covering on Sunday's show when we come back, and that's broken. But for anyone that hasn't looked into what that is, that there's already brief stories going around about this hostess program and what it ultimately led to under Miles and Gundy when they were took it to the step of actually personally interviewing candidates for this particular program.
Yeah, that must have been a difficult interview. That's been a difficult interview. Just a board of seedy old men rating them out of 10, deciding whether they think their athletes would want to sleep with these girls. It's just obscene. It's sickening. Again, I say it's perverted. Everything to do with this program. Whoever was responsible for that, they are gone. They are never employed by a college program again. That is them done. Very easily done. I don't know what more we can talk about. I didn't want to be too heavy on this topic tonight because we spoke about it before. And there's going to be more breaking tomorrow. And we had Gina on as well. I mean, in closing, again, last night we were veering on the side of heavy sanctions. You went as far as death penalty. I thought it'd be more down, just a little below the Penn State avenue, but not a death penalty. And now we're literally at the case where we're hoping that another school punishes their coach and that this school here cleans house for anyone who was involved with the other one. And final point, Stephen, I find it very interesting. This is another thing that's, along the same lines of only the people, second and third string on the depth chart got punished. Have you noticed how all the people singing like a canary seem to fall just outside that statute limitation? Everyone who is 4 years removed from the school or within the school in the last 4 years, none of them are talking. Have you noticed that? None of them are talking. It's everyone else. And again, I find it very hard to believe that any of this report's false, particularly the part about the money. If these guys are selling their story to Sports Illustrated, there's a pretty good chance these guys are taking money to go to school, and it happens up and down the country. I just don't know how we can, what we can enforce now with Oklahoma State University.
As I say, as you already say, I was thinking about death penalty when we were talking about this last night, but having reread some of the facts and just looking at it in terms of what rules and regulations are there, there's no way that's going to happen. And I think you'll struggle to even hit them with the statute limitation as well. I don't think that's going to happen either. I think all you're going to be looking at is people losing their job. That's the most we're going to be looking at out of all of this. And the sad state of affairs is that anyone that loses their job could very well walk into another one the following day.
Yeah, that's the worrying thing. There's going to be a college football program. I don't even think at this point I'm under the mindset that I don't think Les Miles is going to go, and that's an absolute shame. It would have been a real good example for a huge college football program who again could employ anyone they wanted to. If you think about it logically, unless you can attract anyone of these good young coaches coming through, so that would be a shame. Stephen Edwards, we have to move on from Oklahoma State. We're going to try and ask Gina to come back on, by the way. People who've enjoyed listening to Gina, she gave us some exclusives, she gave us some insight into the situation. Once we get some more facts, the next article comes out tomorrow, the final article comes out, we'll ask Gina to come back on to recap the articles and what she's heard on the ground there in Oklahoma. Stephen, Mark Sanchez. Who'd have thought that again, I feel like we're back in 2006. I said this last night because we covered off Kobe and we covered off Jeter and we covered off Michael Beasley. Now we're talking about Mark Sanchez coming in second billing here ahead of some of the awesome games we have tonight and over this weekend. But Mark Sanchez is effectively done for the year, Stephen Edwards. It's that word again, effectively done. He's having season-ending shoulder surgery on a torn shoulder muscle. I mean, yeah. Is he done? Is he done for good?
I don't think he'll be done. I don't think he'll be done for good, but he's done in terms of a starting quarterback. I did have to laugh at something that did come out today. That Mark Sanchez said that had he not got the injury, then he'd have won a quarterback competition. Which I thought was kind of amusing.
Mark Sanchez has never won anything in his life. Any sort of award or competition, he's never won. He's won some football games. He's never won anything in his life outside of being the front cover model of a GQ edition.
So you don't think he could win the three-legged race or the father-son race then, no?
No, not at all. I mean, he did rank in, when me and Tom over at UK End Zone did our good-looking quarterback polls, we actually forgot about him to begin with. I think he ranked in third when we did it again, so, he's on the podium. He's on the podium.
And these comments were made to Rich Eisen. Yeah, basically said I won the competition. There's no doubt. So yeah, he's not exactly the best loser in the world either. To be completely fair to him, he's definitely done this year. There's no way he'll be coming back from that. The most I would say for him that he needs to hope for is that he'll come back and he'll be a backup quarterback somewhere. He's not a starting quarterback in the NFL. People can't get over the mistakes he's made, and I think maybe a change of scenery would perhaps do him some good. To be completely honest with you, there are some teams in the league that maybe could use another quarterback. I think Jacksonville this weekend are starting Chad Henne. Which I think is not going to go particularly well. So Sanchez, although you say, and I'm sitting here saying he shouldn't be a starting quarterback, there's always the scenarios around where a guy like him could be a starting quarterback, whether it'll be injuries are flying around, the relevant starters around the league, and Sanchez is a good option if you want to go to him when you can't find anyone else with any sort of experience to play that starting quarterback role. So I would fully expect him to not be a member of the Jets next season, but he will be a backup quarterback somewhere with a potential of taking over should something happen to the main guy.
Yeah, he's done in New York. That much is obvious, and that includes the Bills and the Giants. He's done in New York. He ain't coming back there, and I don't think he wants to come back there, and I don't think it would do him any good to be brought back to the Jets. They're going to cut him at the end of the season. It won't be too much of a cap hit. They'll be alright in that regard. He's going to be in a training camp next year, battling it out with some rookie again, trying to win the starting job in somewhere like Jacksonville or Oakland. One of these guys who drafted a quarterback potentially in the first round. Maybe they waited because they had Jadeveon Clowney. They picked someone up in the second round. And he'll be in camp with someone, battling out against Steven. I think he's a career backup, and I think he's a good backup. I like him because I like the personality. As much as I don't think he's a winner, I think as a backup quarterback, he's a good guy, which is always a good quality in a backup quarterback. You don't want someone grouchy back there. Let's just say that. I think he does understand the playbook. I think that's often thrown at him, and I think it's a bit unfair when people say that they went to back-to-back AFC Championship games in year 1 and year 2 of Sanchez's reign, and in year 3 they tried to expand the playbook and Sanchez couldn't cope with it. I think that's absolute BS. I watched him do all kinds of things at USC with a huge playbook there. He made all sorts of plays. The kid was a good quarterback there at USC, and I thought that the third season was more to do with the fact that they gambled their mortgage year 1 and year 2 on some ridiculous signing bonuses on senior players like Bart Scott and David Harris. They paid so much money in bonuses to these guys to get them in the door and to try and not hit the cap so they could sign them all, that by year 3 they couldn't re-sign anyone, they couldn't sign anyone new in, and it all tailed away and the talent went down. I don't think all of it, the Jets' calamity, is a level at his door, and I think that he can be serviceable somewhere as a starter. I'd take him right now in Oakland or in Jacksonville, so I think if there's that level of team next year, I'd definitely take him as my starter. I definitely see him next year in a camp somewhere, battling it out with another young QB, probably a rookie, trying to win a starting job, and I think he'll just come second. I think he's going to be a career backup, but a decent backup, as backups go, in that sort of Kyle Orton bracket of a good backup.
No, I completely agree. And as you already say, I mean, if Jacksonville are around next season, you've got, like a Chad Henne as your starting quarterback, then Mark Sanchez is a definite upgrade on that. So he will go into camp. He will battle for a quarterback job. He may lose that battle. And then if an injury happens somewhere else, maybe he then gets traded for a low draft pick and moves on to become a starter somewhere else. You just don't know. And I don't, as I say, I'm not going to sit here and write him off. I think at times he has been unfairly treated in New York, and he ended up in what turned out to be a nightmarish situation and a power struggle. And he was caught up in the middle of that, and it's quite unfortunate. But he needs to now go somewhere else and forget everything that's happened and try and get that confidence back and try and get back to the guy that went to championship games in the past.
Yeah, the butt fumble was not a microcosm of Mark Sanchez. As funny as it is, and I still giggle my head off every time I see it, I think it's absolutely hilarious. Happened to my Patriots. Whilst my Patriots were playing them, I thought it was absolutely hilarious when he ran into Brandon Moss' But that wasn't an epitome of what he was as a quarterback. The guy was good in the first 2 years, and I hate the notion, something that really drives me crazy, because I watch that division religiously. That is my division, it's your division as well. When everyone says they were ground and pound that year, and they had a loaded defense, and that's why they went to the AFC Championship game, Mark Sanchez had nothing to do with it. Well, guess what? Last year, Arizona Cardinals had an absolutely stacked defense. They have another stacked defense this year. They didn't go to a championship game. They didn't make the NFC Championship game, so the guy did a good job. If you put him in the right, it's the same with all the quarterbacks. You get them in the right system that suits them. If you don't give him long balls down the field, you just get him in a 3-step drop and just letting the ball go with 1 or 2 reads. The guy can do a job. It's just that I can't see it happen. I think he's got that stink now. Once those players get that stink, people don't really want to bring him in. Someone will bite on the cherry for a low contract offer next year with no guarantees. It'll just be, if you make the roster, then you get the contract. And he'll be there, like you said, battling out in camp.
Yeah, I mean, I wish him well, to be completely honest with you. And if he can get a decent backup job next season and then ultimately leads him into a starting job, then, fair play to the guy. And you never know. Sometimes that change of scenery can make a big difference when it comes to a quarterback or anyone else in another or major part in another particular sport, because sometimes the situation just isn't right. And in the end, that situation for Mark Sanchez just turned into a nightmare.
Absolutely. Mark Sanchez is still young as well. It's only his 5th year in the league, so the guy's still got some time left. Stephen, we move from, I was going to say the bad, the ugly, and go to the good, but I guess OSU is the ugly and Mark Sanchez is bad. It's not really bad, because Mark Sanchez is an ugly fella, as we've already said, Let's be brutally honest. The ugly situations there at Oklahoma State, the bad with Mark Sanchez. On to the good. Let's be positive for the rest of the show, because we got lots of good to talk about. I want to kick off with the marquee NFL matchup this weekend, because we have debated so many times, and I say to you, I believe this whole sport comes down to one-on-one matchups. You absolutely refute it. You say it's a team game, it's all about the team, and I say it's one-on-one matchups, and it's how many of your guys win their matchup. And we have just the most beautiful, delicious game on the slate this week, Stephen. Right off the bat, week 2, San Francisco go into Seattle to visit the 12th man. man, early impressions of this game, and how do you think it's going to go?
I think, like most of the experts, if anyone's read anything today about the relevant previews that people do across the board in terms of their NFL programs, you'll begin to realise just how difficult this game is to call. It is that tie, and I think it's going to come down to one key play. I think maybe I give Seattle the little bit of an edge because they are playing this game at home. I think both quarterbacks are going to air this ball out. I think that neither of them are really going to, rely on too much of a running game here, and it's going to turn into a shootout quite quickly, which is only going to be even better from the fans' point of view because there's going to be a fair number of points racked up. I think you're probably going to be looking at something like maybe something like a 30-27 or something like that to the Seahawks. It's only going to be decided by a field goal at most. I think if the Seattle offensive line can keep the 49ers front seven away from Russell Wilson, I think that's going to go a long way to deciding how this game's going to go. I think that's going to be one of the definite key battles in this particular game. And I just think Seattle might just want to prove a point to the 49ers who went to Super Bowl last year and just turning around and saying to them, look, you went to Super Bowl last year, but we are literally snapping at your heels, and we're going to be the ones that are going to potentially knock you off come playoff time when we're talking about who's going to go to a Super Bowl from the NFC. And I think they're just going to want it just a little bit more. And I think with that crowd behind them, that little bit more hunger, and just being able to potentially win that matchup, which I think could be one of the key ones. I think that's going to literally just get them home.
So you're going with Seattle?
Yes.
Now, I've thought about this a lot. Yesterday, and Stephen, when you're talking about experts, I hope you are directing people to UKEndzone.com, which is also another section of US Sports Media, who brings you this wonderful podcast 5 times a week, UKEndzone.com, dedicated to fantasy football, college football, and NFL football, bringing previews, reviews, all sorts of hokum and columns up there, Stephen. Excellent website, if I do say so myself. Yesterday on that UK Endzone football program, I said that this Seattle defense is, and I'm not putting it up to the same level as the Ravens defense from 2000 to 2001, because I think it was a different time in the NFL. I think comparatively to the eras they're playing in, I think this defense is as loaded as that. I think it can be that good, this Seattle defense. I have one issue though coming into this week, and I did pick Seattle yesterday, and like you said, you just change every day who you're going with. I wake up today and I think I'm going with the 49ers, because Seattle's defense is so loaded, but they've lost their pass rushers. Both O-lines are stacked as well. That's the key contributors to both their success. They have stacked O-lines, which allows them to run the ball and then run some read option, run some pistol, spread the formations out as well. We just look at the injury list for Seattle. Cliff Averill, a huge off-season addition, he's gone. Chris Clemens is gone. Jordan Hill's gone. Brandon McBain's gone. They've lost so much up front, and as good as that Seattle secondary is, and I think it's probably the best in the league, I mean, if you give Colin Kaepernick that amount of time in the pocket, he's going to pick them apart. And that's the thing that made me pick Seattle before the start of the season was, again, those one-on-one matchups. I said if you stack them up against each other at the start of the season, everyone's healthy, they're one and the same. They're looking in the mirror and they're seeing each other back. The one X factor was Percy Harvin, and Percy Harvin's not in this game. No. I've just got a funny feeling that the 49ers just seem to be they are the scariest team for me in the NFL for 2 reasons. Number one, they were in the Super Bowl last year. They're the only team that were in the Super Bowl last year and actually got better. That is so incredibly difficult to do. They were in the Super Bowl last year. They did not win the thing, but they got better. And they're playing with a chip on their shoulder because they think the league is against them. They could not fathom why they're not the runaway favourites this year. And with all right, because why are they not the runaway favourites this year? I'm going to wake up every day and pick a different team till Sunday. And just for that simple fact that they are lacking a pass rush. And the 12th man, as big as that's made out to be in Seattle, and I love the 12th man. I love Dana O'Gorman, who we're both friends with, who's a big Seattle fan, trumpets the 12th man all the time. the 12th man is allowed in the field, Stephen. The 12th man cannot get out there and rush the passion. So I think they're going to miss that pass rush massively. Cliff Avrill's a huge miss. Chris Clemens is just an unbelievable miss for them on that defensive front. And I'm just going to say that you give Colin Kaepernick that time with his legs or with his arm, and I think he's going to beat them.
I think the 12th man really comes into its own when you're looking at a close game, and I think this is going to be a very close game. But you can make a case either side. I mean, if anyone goes back and listens to the NFL preview shows, I had Seattle with a better record over the season, but I have the 49ers going to the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's how close I put those two teams. I think I had Seattle at 13-3 and the 49ers at 12-4. For me, I think they're going to split these two games over the course of the season. I have Seattle winning now, and I have the 49ers win later on. And both games are going to be decided very late. This is not going to be a game that's not going to live up to the hype. I firmly believe this is the marquee matchup this week in the NFL. We've got the Manning Bowl, and I know any other week, the Manning Bowl would be the game that everyone would be talking about. But for me this week, this is the best game this weekend.
I mean, if the 49ers go into Seattle and do win, man, they're on a steam train to the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
You may as well just pencil them into New York. If they can go in there and do it now, just the second week of the season, they are flying so high. Jim Harbaugh's got them all fired up. They think everyone's out to get them. They're thinking about the cheap shot from Clay Matthews on their new star QB. And that kid is so special. And I know I'm not allowed to call him a kid. People have picked me up on this. I call these people that are older than me kids. Colin Kaepernick is so special. And I just believe it more and more every time I see him. I was very down on him coming into the year. His mechanics were horrendous. He throws it like I've never seen anyone throw it before. Like I told you, it looks like he's picking up a rock and throwing it. But man, he can throw that rock. He can throw it for 400 yards, and he can throw it all over the place to Anquan Bolden and Vernon Davis and those boys. I just can't pick against him. But you know what? Tomorrow I will do. I'm telling you, I'll wake up tomorrow and I'll be on the Seattle bandwagon. So we're splitting hairs here between these two sides. It's a crap shoot of who we pick, but it's quite good that you've gone one way, I've gone the other on record.
The funny thing is, I think what's going to end up happening is it's going to be decided by a time expiring field goal on Sunday night, and that's what it's going to be. And I would say to anyone that's an NFL fan on Sunday night, just forget about sleep and just watch this game.
I agree. I'm going to go 24-17. I'm going to go with touchdown win for the San Francisco 49ers. I want you to give a score prediction on record, sir.
I will go with what I've just said a few moments ago, which is 30-27 Seattle.
Guess what, though, Stephen? We have a delicious appetizer before we get to that game. Now, this is my most favourite game of the whole year because, of course, I'm a college football man. That is what I do. I love my college football. So this is my game before the AFC Championship game. Now, the AFC Championship game resonates with me for two reasons. Because A, I love the Championship games anyway. Because, it decides who goes to the Super Bowl. They're just a big occasion. It can be an interdivisional rival. Plus, this year there's a dinner bet on it. And me and Stephen will be, dining together, watching the AFC Championship game with not knowing who's going to pay for the end of the meal. Stephen, that's going to be interesting. On what are we going to order? Because I don't know if I'm paying or you're paying by the end of the meal. That's going to be interesting.
I think we'll both end up just ordering something really, really cheap.
Yeah, we'll both just end up with the salads and the house water.
The side salad. That's it.
Well, we have a wonderful appetizer for both the AFC Championship game and for the Sunday game between Seattle and San Francisco. Texas A&M, Johnny football, hosting Alabama and the Crimson Tide and that vaunted defense of Nick Saban, which Johnny tore apart last year, and they say he can't do it again. The naysayers say Saban will have figured him out. Guess what, Stephen? Saban had tape on him last year. This notion that Nick Saban had never seen anything like Johnny Manziel, and he rolled into Tuscaloosa last year and ran roughshod all over him. Guess what? That was in November. So he'd seen all the tape in the world that he had to see anyway, and they couldn't stop him. How do you see this game going?
I can't look past Alabama this time. As much as I would love Texas A&M to rub it in Saban's face, I just cannot make a case Texas A&M winning this one. I think Texas A&M will have no trouble getting the ball around in the air from Mizell. He's gonna have a monster game for Texas A&M, and he's just going to be an absolute handful. But I don't think he can do enough damage for what Alabama will do to the Texas A&M secondary. I think Alabama are going to pass at will. They're going to run multiple sets of four wide receivers, and I can just see Alabama absolutely tearing that A&M secondary. They're going to spend so much time on the field in a nickel defense or so. They're just going to struggle, I think, to try and keep up with Alabama. And again, I talk about Seattle maybe being a bit more hungry for this game to prove a point to the 49ers from an NFC point of view. Saban is not going to want to lose to Texas A&M 2 years in a row. There is no way. Saban, for me, will take this personally, and he will ensure that every single minute of that game he is 100% tuned in to everything that's going on, all the preparation that he's done. He's probably prepared for this game bigger than probably maybe any other game he may have done in his life, because I think this is what it means to him, because he has got. He would potentially have that chip on his shoulder. As a side issue I wanted to bring up, this, from what I gather, this may be one of the most expensive, if not the most expensive, college football ticket of all time.
I'm sure it is, because we've never had a reigning Heisman Trophy winner with this much baggage go up against a dynasty in football. So, I mean, I haven't done my research, and I think I'm going to do some research now, Stephen, with regards to ticket prices, because you know that I did that show where I went through the college football ticket prices, which was phenomenal, and I could buy a ticket to watch Johnny Manziel versus Rice for $2, and I was very pleased with that. You know, I'm going for Texas A&M, and I have two reasons for going for Texas A&M. Number one is Johnny Manziel. I believe so much in this kid in the collegiate game that he can just do some spectacular things that you can't draw up. People talk about the tape again. Nick Saban had all the tape on him beforehand. They played each other in November. He couldn't stop it then. They talk about him having the tape now. Guess what? Johnny Manziel is an improviser. You cannot draw up plays to stop improvisation, because you don't know what's going to happen. The offense doesn't know what's going to happen, and Johnny Manziel doesn't know what's going to happen. He doesn't know what he's going to do when he snaps the football, because he improvises. He wants to sit back in the pocket more for NFL evaluators. I tell you now, come Saturday in College Station, that'll go completely out the window. All he will care about is beating Alabama. He'll do it by any means necessary. It'll be pure improvisation. He may even rush for more yards than he throws for. I just believe in him so much. That Alabama offense is so static. They can't get the run game going. TJ Yeldon was supposed to be a Heisman Trophy frontrunner. He can't get going on the ground. The offensive line is completely revamped. They lost 3 guys to the first round of the NFL draft. They lost Barrett Jones, the 4-year captain and 4-year starter at center. That's a huge loss for AJ McCarron. And I just think that offensive line is completely stuttering. And McCarron's role as a leader and changing plays and protections on the field is being seriously questioned. I think we're being shown more and more that a lot of that was down to Barrett Jones. And his leadership's being called into question, and his ability to change plays on the fly is being called into question. And that's what's going to be required this game. This is not a game that you can just draw up plays beforehand and go out and win this football game. It's going to be lots of improvisation, changing your schemes on the fly, seeing what each other's giving. It's going to be a blow for blow, punch by punch sort of boxing match out there. And I just have every faith in Johnny Manziel. And secondly, that notion, Stephen Edwards, do not give me that rhetoric about Nick Saban. Oh, he wants to win this game, or he's so fired up for this game, it's the one game in his life. You know what? It's probably Kevin Sumlin's one game in his life. And Kevin Sumlin has the ability for me to be considered the best coach in college football. I am astounded by what this guy has done in his early college football head coaching career. And if he goes to the NFL, I think he'll be a massive success at the NFL level. He's got pro football written all over him, which Nick Saban does not. That's just a little jab at Nick there for you, Steve.
I appreciate that little jab at Nick.
The notion that I've heard all through the off-season that Nick Saban's been preparing for this game, do you not think Kevin Sumlin has? Do you realise they played Rice and Sam Houston State? Do you not think they've been preparing for Alabama all off-season? That was their game to get ready for. Kevin Sumlin wants this game just as much as Nick Saban, and at the end of the day, it's not going to come down to that. It's going to come down to the two squads on the football field. Alabama's offensive line has lots to prove. The Texas A&M wide receiving corps is as loaded as any in the country, as well as USC's is. They've got a stable of running backs. They've got an almost unstoppable offense led by Johnny Manziel. This could be a high-scoring game, but Johnny Manziel's going to put up so many points, and like you said, he's going to have a monster game. I don't see Texas A&M squeezing this one out.
It's going to be close, but I say I'm still going with Alabama to win this game. I just cannot think of a scenario where Alabama don't win this game. I suppose the other thing is, I mean, whoever loses this game, it doesn't mean the end of their national title hopes, because of the way the SEC is structured. And whoever wins that SEC title game will ultimately go to the BCS title game. So it'll dent you from a point of view of, you want that momentum, you want to keep on winning. But it doesn't necessarily mean that after Saturday night, I believe the game starts at around about 8:30 our time. So by midnight, we should potentially know who's won that game. But whoever loses that game, it doesn't rule themselves out of national title contention. It could very well reverse those chances come the title game and ultimately represent the team in the BCS.
Alright then, Johnny Manziel. Everyone in the world is against you. Stephen Edwards is against you. I am with you, brother. I love you, Johnny. You're going to pull this one out for me. I'm going Texas A&M 31, Alabama Crimson Tide 24. Stephen Edwards, your score prediction.
I am going 28-24 to Alabama.
Close.
And I never said I didn't like.
He doesn't believe you, Johnny. He doesn't believe you, Johnny. He doesn't think you can do it on the biggest stage, the biggest game of your life. He thinks that Nick Saban is too clever and he'll figure you out. He does not believe in you, Johnny Football. You can do this for me. Johnny Football is Team Juice. Let's get that out there straight away. He is no spud. Johnny Manziel is pure and simply Team Juice, and I'm with you, Johnny. I'm with Team Manziel. You can do this one. I cannot wait for this. I think we should get Nick Ruffin back on Sunday evening. I'm gonna text Nick Ruffin later this evening and see if he'll come back on.
Why not? Let's have Nick back on and get his thoughts on this big game as we review it on Sunday night. But if Nick Saban's listening to our podcast, I take back everything I've said, Nick, if you'll get myself and Ollie tickets to this game.
Now I'm just looking at the ticket prices. I mean, we are going to move on in a second. You know I like to do this. This is my fun little game I do, because I'm a guy who loves college football and I sit and watch it all day, every day, Stephen. As I have to tell people every single show, but it's also for new listeners. And my favourite little game is to go on ESPN.com/collegefootball/schedule, and they show you the StubHub prices for every single game on the right hand side, and you'll be amazed by how cheap some college football games are, and it's shocking just how good the quality of games are and how cheap they are. And I'm looking through now. You give me a matchup to begin with. Just give me one matchup, and I know which way you'll probably go, and I'll tell you the price of the ticket. Then I'll give you some shocking ones.
Well, first of all, I think we need to have a look at the. Let's start at the very top. Come on, I looked at it roughly, stated what is this ticket price for?
Now these are
Texas A&M
tickets available from, which obviously means the cheapest one you can get is that price. Let's put that there. So this isn't the upper echelon. This is the cheapest as far back as possible, which I would take, Stephen, to be there in College Station. There's 3,000 left. Yeah. Oh, 2,000 left. 2,294. $71. I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, I think they were looking at. I think when they talked about the most expensive game, I think they looked at something like maybe the average price.
Yeah. Well, I definitely pay $71 to see Johnny Manziel beat Alabama. Then this shocks me one below, because Oregon at home hosting Tennessee.
So Tennessee, isn't it, the other one?
Which is an interesting game. Oregon are ranked number 2 in the nation right now. That's $90. That's more expensive than Alabama A&M. I mean, try and figure that one out.
I wouldn't say Oregon's a particularly expensive ticket in terms of college football compared with the biggest game in the country. I mean, the people have been talking about it's a once in a decade type game, or even more than that. So that does strike me as a little bit strange. Let's pick out another game. What about UCLA against Nebraska? So you've got 2 top 25 teams there.
I'll have to find this bad boy for you now. Let me have a look through. This is fascinating listening. You see, the price is not available, which essentially means there's no tickets left. You cannot buy a ticket for UCLA, Nebraska. I've got 2 great ones for you here, though, Stephen. We'll round this off with these 2 fantastic ones. Your LSU Tigers, if you wanted to see the LSU Tigers this year in possibly Les Miles' last ever game, at home against Kent State, that's $9, Stephen Edwards. That's a bargain.
How about that?
This one is phenomenal, and it's a personal one for me as well. Western Michigan, my main man, Coach PJ Fleck, having all sorts of trouble in his first head coaching job at the moment. They go to Northwestern, which is actually Mike Greenberg's team. If anyone saw him lead out Northwestern the other day, it was absolutely hilarious. Guess how much tickets are for Western Michigan travelling to Northwestern?
What do you reckon? $2?
$8. $8. I can't buy a meal deal over here for $1, but I could see my man, Coach Fleck, travel to Northwestern with Western Michigan.
It's funny, isn't it? Just what things cost.
It's a crazy old world out there in college football. Stephen Edwards, we're done with the Alabama A&M. We're done with the Seahawks, the Seahawks 49ers, sorry. And it's fantastic that we've actually debated and we're on the other side of each other. There's no agreement. Even on one of the games, there's no agreement.
So somebody's going to sit there and be crying into a tissue on Monday's show. Or even Sunday's show. Well, no, Sunday's show won't, because the Seahawks 49ers game won't have taken place at that particular point.
Well, you'll still be crying from watching Johnny Manziel put up 6,000 yards in a game and breaking every game of record. The kid steps up when he needs to most. All right, Stephen Edwards, let's move on. Let's go with this one then. This is an interesting one that you brought up with me the other day when you were listening to a Met-specific podcast, which must be one of the most dreary podcasts over the last couple of decades, up there with the Cleveland Browns fans podcasts, with just moaning and what have you, and discussing the future, never looking at actually the present and always looking towards the future. They mentioned about pitching rotations and about how squads and ball clubs should now be looking to protect their pitchers.
Yeah, I mean, just to give a bit of a plug to this particular podcast, and because Ollie's not going to, for the simple reason is that he doesn't give any credence for it being a Mets podcast anyway. But
also, sponsors pay good money to advertise on this show, sir. I'll have you know.
No, but it is a Mets podcast, and it's a podcast that I do listen to. But because they brought it up, I think we have to give them a little bit of credence for doing it, but it's a mostly Mets podcast. And basically what the thing they brought up, which I thought was rather interesting, was that with all these young pitchers potentially having shoulder or arm problems, I mean, obviously the most recent one from a Mets point of view, and it's probably what kick-started this conversation, is the Matt Harvey one. Is it not something to look into that you do an MRI on a regular basis, so that you can see how that pitcher is health at that particular stage? We're not talking about doing one after every start, but we're looking at from a monthly basis and start understanding what is going on with these pitchers, because I don't think we can trust them to come out and say, I can't go. I'm not 100%. Therefore I've got to. I've literally I can't pitch tonight, and I need to get myself sorted out. I don't think we can trust pitchers to do that anymore. And I think now the argument is to enforce from a team point of view of getting these pitchers sorted out, an MRI every month. And from my understanding, that an MRI will cost $2,000 anytime you want to do that. And in the grand scheme of things, the amount of money you're investing in your pitching, that's really just a drop in the ocean. It's not even worth worrying about.
Yeah, my point on this, and I said it to you straight away, is that if I'm the Los Angeles Dodgers, I'm either doing this after every single start, or I'm doing it after every other start. And I know you might think that's crazy, but if you think about $2,000, you could just not sign one veteran free agent in the off-season, and you got yourself enough money there to cover 2 guys all season. If you're already investing tens of millions of dollars with the thought process being that this kid's going to be a world beater, and therefore he's probably going to be a $200 million pitcher, which is the way the MLB's gone, by the way, Stephen. When I've got $200 million pitchers over 10 years, which is just insane. If you're looking to invest that much money, I want to know every step of the way how this guy's feeling medically. I don't care if it's an invasion of privacy or if you just ask the guy and it's sort of baseball etiquette to chuck the ball to him that morning and say, are you good to go? I want to know bang on, how is this guy ready to go and how close is it? Is there any tear we can pick up straight away that's just a tiny fibre, and maybe if we just give it a couple of starts off, that'll heal it up and we won't risk a complete tear. I want to know that as often as possible if I'm investing that kind of money, and I would build that into every single pitcher's contract that it's at my discretion to ask you to go for an MRI scan.
Yeah, I mean, if you could pick up anything within there, then you could end up saving yourself a whole lot of heartache.
And pure dollars. I'm pure dollars.
Yeah, this is it. It's the amount of money involved, and it's you would expect next season, if Matt Harvey isn't around, that what would be potentially his start will attract less people through the turnstiles.
Absolutely.
That's the nature of the beast, unfortunately. When Matt Harvey pitches, or one of the other Mets phenoms like a Zach Wheeler, that those guys now, when they go out and pitch, you're going to get better crowds for those guys than you're going to get for some of the other guys that are going out there pitching in that as part of that rotation. So, yeah, it's the whole thing is you've got the money side of things for the guy you're actually signing anyway. You've got the money that's generated on the nights they're actually pitching. So you need to put in some kind of investment into those players to ensure that you can keep them as healthy as possible, because they can't be trusted to disclose whatever minor ailments they have that might not necessarily be minor ailments. They might be something more.
See, but how many times on average does a stud pitcher, say like Matt Harvey, pitch a year?
Well, anything up to potentially 35 starts.
So if we say 35, and I times that by 2,000, which is what you say is the average of an MRI scan.
Yeah.
So $7,000.
$70,000.
$70,000 for a year. That is absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing for the Mets to do. Because they could generate that through Harvey t-shirts, Harvey jerseys, caps. They would generate that easily. The new TV deal that they have to do now, just store $70,000 away a year for Matt Harvey and say once a week. That's for every start. I've just done that as well. So if I do it every 2 starts, it comes down drastically again. It comes down to $35,000. It's a drop in the ocean to just check. And you also might find, Stephen, maybe not that you save an injury before it happens, but you might find a reoccurring theme, which may then you need to maybe change the throw-in motion, or you just say, look, this guy's too risky to sign because every third outing he's getting a tiny tear in his shoulder. You could find those sorts of trends as well. It just seems a sensible way. And you talk about the Moneyball aspect of baseball in the last few years. How this sort of trend hasn't come in, it baffles me.
No, I was saying, I mean, it's something that I didn't even think of, but the more you hear it, the more I listen to it, the more it makes sense. You've got to start finding ways to protecting certainly the pitchers that you're bringing through, and we're already seeing a growing trend where teams are investing more money in their own players than they are going out and getting those big free agents, unless you are certain teams in the league. And obviously we didn't see too many players move at a trade deadline again, because teams aren't willing to, unless they're going to take that low risk, potential high reward, they're not going to make those decisions. They want to continue to develop their own players because it's a cheaper way of doing things. I mean, baseball is becoming even more about economics.
So how often would you do the MRI scans if you were the GM?
I still think I agree with what came out on that particular show, and I would say it was once a month. It for me is perfectly acceptable, and that would be for not only your starting pitchers, but that would be for all of your pitchers. You couldn't turn around and say, "Oh, I'm only going to."
I can do. Like I'd say, are you as a relief pitcher bringing guys through the turnstiles? Of course, it's a different scale. That always frustrates me that you have to treat all the players the same. Of course, there's different gradients of players, and of course, there's grey areas with certain players. If I have a relief pitcher in the bullpen who just pitches for me and is on a couple of year deal, it's completely different if I'm trying to invest into a Matt Harvey for $20 million a year and he's bringing everyone through the turnstile and he's the hope of the New York Mets franchise. I mean, that's completely different to me. I mean, you obviously have a different opinion. If I'm the GM, I'm putting it in every contract. It's at my discretion. I'd maybe do all the relief pitchers once a month, but I'm doing someone like Harvey and then a young guy like Wheeler who I'm trying to bring through. I'm doing them like after every 2 goes.
I don't think you can separate one from the other without alienating people.
You think the relief pitchers don't already know that they're lower on the totem pole than starting studs? Man, they have the best job in the world. I mean, there's no better job in the world for me than playing Major League Baseball as a reliever who maybe is only in lefty-on-lefty matchups and gets trotted out once in a series and gets to just hang with the crowd. It's the greatest job in the world. I don't think they care that much.
It's also the fact that you've got a high failure rate as well. The fact that if you make that mistake with that the one pitch, that's the one pitch people remember.
It's true, but still, it's great fun. Play professional baseball and getting lots of nights off and just chilling with the crowd in the bullpen. Seems like a lot of fun to me. And I love the bullpens are always so far away from the manager that the manager can't chew your ear off for any pranks you're doing or anything going down in the bullpen. You're always so far away from it.
No, and that's the reason why you tend to find that a lot of guys in the bullpen tend to be the characters of the team. And I've seen some crazy stuff down the years of different things that relief pitchers get up to, and there's no. You can understand why, because of that, where they could make that one mistake, they've got to have a certain kind of mentality to do their job. I mean, especially you want to talk about like a left-handed pitcher coming in the face of a left-handed batter. I mean, think about a closer. A closer is there on the. Yeah, well,
I'm not saying I'd be a closer. I'm not being a closer. I'm being that. I'm being a righty-on-righty matchup. I'm right-handed. I'm being the guy who gets trotted out, takes one guy down in the 7th or 8th, and then I get out there for the next guy.
No.
And you know what I'm doing as well if I'm a relief pitcher? I'm looking through the schedule at the start of the year, and at basically every away series, I'm checking where the bullpen is, and I'm buying series tickets for my family towards the bullpen, and I'm getting them bringing in food, and getting them bringing in hot dogs and nachos, and handing it all down to me. That's what I'm doing. That is such an immense life. It's like being the guy who doesn't dress on the NBA basketball team. Such an amazing life.
I'd love to be a closer. I really would. I'd love to be.
You're an adrenaline junkie, Steven.
Yeah, I am the adrenaline junkie. I would have some kind of funny facial hair. I would buy into it completely.
You're going down the Brian Wilson route, I see.
Yeah, Brian Wilson. Although the ultimate for me is still Dennis Eckersley. He's still the best guy I've ever seen close out games.
It's true. Okay then, away from baseball and back to football. We are football heavy today, which is also a good thing, Stephen. We can't help it. It's Thursday night football night. I'm excited about Saturday and Sunday. We're going to do pick'ems as we do a weekly pick'em here, Stephen Edwards, not through the NFL Network stuff, which is actually a great service. If you want to go to nfl.com/pick'em, we just do it vocally, mouth to mouth. Stephen Edwards. It's a horrible image to put out there, but it is what we do. And we do it across the airways, and then people can laugh and they can jot down for a record. And I'd like you to maybe jot it down for us now so that we can sort of keep a table of this. See who comes out the victor. And we'll begin with week 2 there. Stephen Edwards getting his paper ready. You got a pen and paper ready?
I've got a pen and paper ready. So
we're going through order. We're going through in order.
We'll go through order. So we've got the Jets and the Patriots. Okay,
and what I want from you, Stephen, I don't want a long rant about his team, which is more on me. Let's be honest, I'll be breaking down the film here one-on-one. I just want a bit of a statement, and then your pick. Does that seem fair? Seems fair to the listeners as well. Alright, I'm going to let you take this game first. Jets at Patriots, Thursday Night Football.
Geno Smith, not a chance against an experienced Patriots team. Tom Brady, no matter what weapons he's got around him, he's still going to find ways to move the ball and score. I can't see any reason for the Patriots not to go 2-0.
Patriots lacking some weapons, it is a big deal. The Jets are loaded on defense. They do look better than I even thought they would be on defense, and I thought they could potentially be a top 10, top 5 defense. Brady will still find a way to get it done because I think that Jets offense is so anemic. It's going to be a low-scoring game, closer than some people think, but I think the Jets close it out like they did in Buffalo. Game 2 then, Stephen Edwards, the Rams at the Falcons.
I can't believe that you've literally gone for the Jets.
I went for the Patriots.
Oh, I thought I misheard you. I thought you were going for the Jets.
I said Patriots close it out slowly. I may have said Jets by accident. Patriots close
you
it
did
out.
say the Jets by accident.
Patriots close it out like they did in Buffalo. Patriots win.
I was going to say, I've got you down for the New York Jets then for a minute.
No, thank you.
Right, so you're going for your next one. You're going for is the
Rams at the Falcons. Sneaky good game, by the way.
Falcons. I don't think you could look past the Falcons in this one, but this is we talked about last night about a couple of games that sneak up on you as being potentially really good games, but I think the Falcons are going to have too much for the Rams. I mean, I was quite impressed by the Falcons last week.
Yeah, the Falcons are loaded. I'm still waiting to see what this camouflage package is of Tavon Austin. They're going to unleash him at some point, Stephen Edwards. They forgot to do it in week 1. They appeared to still be holding Tavon Austin back there in St. Louis. I think their offense is going to rely on him, even though they were able to move the ball fairly well against Arizona last week. I just can't put the Falcons down at 0-2 because I think they're too good to be at 0-2. I got the Falcons winning this one as well and going 1-1 on the season.
So we both agree so far, the Patriots and the Falcons.
On to the Chargers at Chip Kelly and that vaunted Eagles offense.
Every time you pick a game, it's not one I've written down yet.
I'm going through order here.
Well, I might have a different order to you because these are the 6 o'clock games. But anyway, I don't rate San Diego. I mean, they had that game against Houston last week where they literally threw it away. I mean, they gave up 28 points in the last 25 minutes of football, or maybe even not even that. So they are just a nightmare waiting to happen. Philadelphia had a good game at the weekend. I think the Philadelphia offense, as the more weeks go on, the more we'll see out of this offense. And I think Philadelphia are going to have way too much for San Diego. This is a game that I don't think I'll be watching.
I'll be glued to this one because I'm a stickler for the film and for watching Chip Kelly. I have my Kelly-gasms, which is just lording over what Chip Kelly's doing there with Philadelphia, bringing some stuff from Oregon. This would be a close game if it were not for the fact that the one thing the Eagles could not do is defend the run. The one thing the San Diego Chargers could not do is run the football. The Chargers are going to have to chuck the thing up there like McCoy likes to do, and the one thing that this Eagles defense can do is turn the ball over and take the ball away like they did against the Redskins the other night. The Eagles win this one for me at a canter. Probably by the end of the first half. I think it's going to be another game which we're going to see a lot from the Eagles this year where they get out to a big lead in the first half. Teams come back on them a bit as they slow down their offense and try to run the game out. But the Eagles still win this one for me.
So we're still agreeing with each other.
You know what, Stephen? I'll let you pick the next game, see as I'm picking them all over the place. You can pick the games from now on and I'll go first now. We'll go 2-2. You can pick the next 2 games.
Okay, Carolina at Buffalo. That's just the next one on my list.
This is a really toss of a coin game. It's so close. I was so impressed with EJ Manuel last week. I watched every single snap he played in that opener. So much poise in the pocket, was able to slide his feet better than I thought he could do. The mechanics looked better than I thought they would do. And like I said, I thought he was too nice a guy. And he had that fire yesterday. He had that little bit of unhinged nature, like a Brady and a Breeze. I was very impressed with him. But I'm a man for Cam Newton. I love me some Cam Newton. Most underrated star in the National Football League. I'm going to have to go with Cam on this one. I can't have them sliding to 0-2. And that defense with Starlo, Tulele and everyone up front is absolutely primed to go. Watch out for Luke Kuechly having a game for the ages here, the middle linebacker. He's going to just be phenomenal against that Buffalo offensive line.
Yeah, I think, and you touched on it there in terms of the offensive line for that Buffalo have. I think he's literally going to squeeze the life out of that running game that Buffalo have. and it's going to force EJ Manuel to throw the ball around more in the air, and that's when we're going to potentially see what he's made of when he has to go to the air a lot more often, because they're not going to be able to run the ball. I think that's when you're going to see some potential mistakes, and Cam Newton will have a better game on the offensive end for Carolina compared to EJ Manuel. So I've got Carolina winning this by a touchdown.
I like it. Where to next, Mr. Edwards?
For me, an overlooked game this weekend. Vikings against the Bears.
A really interesting one. Do the Vikings fall to 0-2? Do the Bears go to 2-0? That's exactly how I have it. We still haven't seen much from Mark Trestman. I believe that. I don't think that they'll be able to keep Jared Allen and those guys out for a duck egg again in the sack column. I think that there's going to be more pressure on the quarterback this week. Despite the fact they went up against an absolutely loaded D-line in the Bengals last week, I just think that there's something different about Jay Cutler this year. Like we said, Steven, something magical happens to these guys in the contract year. Brandon Marshall looked virtually unstoppable last week. I see no one in the secondary of the Vikings who can even come close to stopping this guy. I can see Cutler to Marshall all day long, and I see a Bears win.
Yeah, I think that's going to pretty much be the case. I think the only thing you haven't touched on is obviously that I think Adrian Peterson will have another big game, but when you always look at that Minnesota offense, you always wonder about what else is going to be apart from Peterson, and all the time Ponders behind that center. It's not going to be much else. So, yeah, I've got the Bears winning this one, because I think they'll be able to contain Peterson maybe a few times to try and stop a few of those drives, and Chicago will have enough offense to win this. And I'm excited about Trestman being in charge of Chicago.
Yeah, I don't think their line is as loaded as the Detroit Lions line is. I just think that they're going to drop 8 men down the box. They're going to put Peanut Tillman all over the place. Christian Ponder's going to have to figure out where he is before every snap. That's going to be something to watch for. He's going to take a good length of time to figure out where Charles Tillman is on every snap. They're going to have 8-9 men down the box, stopping Adrian Peterson, and then we're going to have a Ponder versus Tillman shootout in terms of him going up against the defensive back, and that's going to get pretty damn ugly, because Tillman is the most underrated cornerback in the game for me.
No, I completely agree. I mean, I worry about Ponder. I really do. I mean, we both absolutely slated him at times with regards to his particular play. So yeah, I can see only bad things happening at times from a Minnesota point of view. But then who knows? Adrian Peterson could turn in one of those great performances, and Ponder could just sit there and take pictures of Peterson running with the ball. Washington versus Green Bay.
What a game. I mean, we spoke about the appetizer for the 49ers Seahawks game being Manziel and Alabama. This is another great appetizer in the early games. Man, RG3 just doesn't look healthy. I think it's going to take him a month or so to get right, and I'm really worried about their run game. Alfred Morris was so effective last year because they ran out the spread option. The defense didn't know what was coming. It enabled them to open up the passing game to Santana Moss and Pierre Garçon. They're not going to run as much this year, and that doesn't mean that the RG3 isn't a great passer at the ball. It just means they have to figure some new nuances out within the scheme to be able to allow him to drop back there and pass it. I can't have Aaron Rodgers going down to 0-2. I think the Green Bay defense is getting some pieces back this weekend, which is going to help them massively. And at Lambeau Field, I ain't betting against the Packers.
No, if you look at it from a quarterback point of view, I mean, Aaron Rodgers is, at the moment, quite a bit above RG3, because RG3 isn't 100% right, and we did see that last week. I suppose you begin to wonder, maybe did RG3 start finding some of his rhythm as the game went on. So it'll be interesting to see how he starts this game against Green Bay, but even if he starts well, you still can't look past the Packers winning this one at home.
Absolutely, completely concur with everything you said there. Stephen Edwards, we're agreeing on everything. Let's have some disagreement here at the First Take Studio. Where are you taking me to next? And I'll try and find something to disagree with you about.
Okay, here's one that's going to disagree then. Indianapolis against Miami.
Oh, the Colts disappointed me so much last week, Stephen. I've got them down as an 11-5 team. I thought Chuck Pagano would have figured out a lot of the deficiencies within that defense. I thought Andrew Luck was just going to once again control that offense and run it. Again, sick of the notion though that it's all about Luck in terms of the Luck rather than Andrew Luck. with the Colts with their come from behind victories. Obviously, there's some medicine there that's working well, and some sort of thing they're doing right to always have those come from behind victories. So that's one point to make. I'm going to stick with the Colts because I've got them at 11-5. This is the sort of game they have to win. I'm going with Andrew Luck over Ryan Tannehill, despite the fact he's going to be on the run all game. That Miami pass rush is going to come at him fierce, come at him strong. There is absolutely no one to defend the rush there. The halfbacks, the running backs cannot stand in pass protection. Anthony Castano is possibly the worst defensive tackle in the National Football League at the moment with a starting job. So I worry about that. I just have to put every single faith in Andrew Luck's basket that he's the absolute surefire Hall of Famer I believe he will be. And because I've got them to 11 wins, they're going to have to win these sort of games. I'm rolling with the Colts at home.
I was completely unimpressed by the Colts' performance last week, bearing in mind of how much you talked them up and how Andrew Luck was going to set record after record in this particular game, and we saw nothing of the sort. From a Miami point of view, Miami last week, the one thing they couldn't do was establish a running game. That was the one thing that held them back, and they were helped out by Ryan Tannehill getting Miami out of danger on several drives. Now, I actually think this week Miami could potentially establish even some sort of running game against Indianapolis. And I think they'll do enough damage on defense to Andrew Luck and get him running around and not give him the time that he would like to have. And I think if Tannehill plays anything like he did last week, I can see the Dolphins here potentially pulling out an upset, and I'm going to plump with the Dolphins to upset the Indianapolis Colts.
I wouldn't call it too much of an upset. I think most people have got the Dolphins in to win this game because, I'll tell you what, this is the one thing to watch out for this weekend. I reckon there's not going to be a single play this weekend where Cameron Wake is not in the Indianapolis Colts backfield. Every single play.
He was awesome.
That Cameron Wake's out there, and he's just pure awesome anyway. And there's no offensive line there in Indianapolis. They're going to be running bootlegs and waggles just to give Andrew Luck any chance next week. Just watch it. Every single play, he'll be in the backfield. A running back's going to have to pick him up. A fullback they'll probably have to stick in to pick Cameron Wake up. He's going to have, it may not have a huge game on the stat sheet because they're going to have to compensate for him so much, but just watch it if you're watching that tape on a condensed game or if you're watching it live as a Colts Dolphins fan or on the red zone. Cameron Wake will be in the backfield on every single play.
And Miami's defense was extremely good last week. 6 sacks, 3 interceptions.
Apologies to go off topic, Stephen. I did watch the tape. I didn't really notice too much. Did Deion Jordan feature much?
I think he actually got. I can't remember. I'm trying to remember now. He either got a sack and he got taken away from him on a penalty. But for me, I wasn't that impressed. I think the problem was, although you get to a point where he was overshadowed by Cameron Wake, but I didn't see anything in there that I thought, oh yeah, he's a guy that we've traded up to get. Look what we've managed to steal in the draft. I didn't get any of those sort of notion. But again, it is only week 1, so I'll be very interested to see what happens to him going forward for the season. But at the moment, I'm reserving judgment.
Yeah, I think it's going to take him a couple of weeks. Coming off the injury, he's still trying to put some weight on, and it's difficult to come off an injury when you put weight on because your actual body is changing. It's often overlooked in the NFL off-season. When guys are dropping weight or putting on weight, they're completely changing their body, and then they're trying to come off an injury, so that's difficult. He's just going to be a pin in the ear back. You're going to have a lightning strike pass rush, by the way, that's going to be so scary. They're going to build that thing in the same way the Giants did when they took down the Patriots in those 2 Super Bowls. I honestly believe that. They're building something quite nice there, Miami. I just, for some reason, I'm going gut feeling. You know how much I appreciate and love Andrew Luck. I'm going with my man AL. I'm gonna start rolling that nickname out.
I'm going to be trying to watch this game on the way back from Hoops Aid on Sunday night. So
on the phone to me, Bluetooth in the car. That's what we'll do. Play by play solely for Stephen Edwards. From the voice of Connolly.
That's what we're gonna have to try and do because I can't afford to miss this game. This is the only thing with being a Dolphins fan. You play the early game more often than not on a Sunday night, and that sometimes isn't always convenient.
Okay, then moving on. What game have we got next?
As much as I don't really want to go to it, Tennessee-Houston.
Tennessee-Houston. Let's just run through this one pretty quick. I'm gonna go with the Tennessee Titans. I think they're going to be able to establish the run game. They ran behind Chance Warmack an awful lot last week, and I'm starting to feel very, is the word vilified? That's the wrong word. Very, very validated and satisfied that sitting at number 1 overall on my big board was Mr. Chance Warmack, because I saw not too much from Eric Fisher and not too much from Luke Jokel, which inspired me to think that they should have been selected for their respective teams over Chance Warmack. He was an absolute monster running against the pass rush there from the Pittsburgh Steelers. I didn't see much on the interior of that Houston line that's going to stop Chance Warmack and drilling back that entire Houston Texans line outside of J.J. Watt. And J.J. Watt wasn't even that impressive on Monday night, so I can just see CJ2K going off on this game and giving us one last monster game to get some fantasy owners all excited for him again before, he just has an average season.
I can't look past the Houston Texans in this one. I think for me they got the brutal wake up call on Monday night, and I think they're going to have far too much to worry about the Tennessee Titans, and I think they're going to have Matt Sharp's going to have a big day passing. I mean, he had a monster second half on Monday night, and he's going to continue that as well. I can't look past Houston in this one.
Okay, then next game, who we got on the slate next?
It's the last of the early games, and it's the Dallas Cowboys against the Kansas City Chiefs.
This is another sneaky good game, and I cannot figure out whether the Chiefs are pretty damn good and were able to hold the Jags to 2 points and be able to sort of run on them at will the way they did the other day, or whether the Jags were that bad that the Chiefs, we didn't get an accurate reflection of them. I just think at home, with the place rocking and rolling because Alex Smith is in town and Andy Reid is in town, as uninspiring as that might sound, that's quite inspiring for a town that just went through the garbage at quarterback and coach that they had there. I'm going to go with the Kansas City Chiefs at home to rock onto 2-0.
I'm going to have to disagree, and I'm going to go with the Dallas Cowboys. I think Tony Romo is going to have a big game, hooking up with Des Bryant as much as he possibly can. I think the Dallas defense will put a lot of pressure on Alex Smith and try and force those key turnovers. And I think Dallas is going to march into Kansas City and come out with a victory.
Yeah, what the Chiefs need to do is drive. The Giants are able to do it all day long because they have an elite quarterback for me in Eli Manning. They have Victor Cruz and Hakeem Nicks and Randall as well. They're able to drive the ball downfield all game. That's what Alex Smith is going to have to do. This is going to be one of those games where we see the game get put in Alex Smith's hands. We know that it's not worked out too well for him in the past. It's time for him to step up, Steve, in his new role. The one thing I will say about Tony Romo is I don't know how injured that guy is, because he is under the radar tough. He punctured a lung a while back and came back out there on the football field. He injured his ribs last week, and he was struggling to walk at times last weekend. So I don't know how bad those ribs are hurt, whether they're cracked and they're not telling us something. He's just going to wear a flat jacket. I don't know about his.
I'm going to patch him up.
I don't know about his health status. This game is on Alex Smith for me. Win it or lose it, and God help me that I'm rolling with Alex Smith in this one.
Apologies, Browns and Ravens fans. You are the last game in the early slate.
Man.
Which way are you going to go?
See, I predicted the Browns to have a decent year.
At times last weekend against Miami, they looked truly shocking.
They really did. I don't know if they're going to get that offense moving. Man. I guess... Man. I don't know where to go. Where are you going?
I'm going for the Ravens. They've never lost to the Cleveland Browns. I think that the Ravens are going to... the Ravens' defense cannot be as bad as it was in that awful performance against Denver. I think they would have been brought in this week and made to watch game film after game film after game film about what they did wrong. And I think the Baltimore Ravens will be completely fired up for this one. And they will take care of the Cleveland Browns, who I think were at times, as I say, dreadfully poor.
I'm going to have to agree with you, because they're not facing Peyton Manning this week. They're facing the furthest thing from Peyton Manning, despite how old both quarterbacks are. See, I'm going to continue to say what I said about the Ravens all off-season and this week as well. They are still better on defense than they were last year. What they are lacking on defense this year is the fact that they've just lost 2 guys. One of them was there for 10 years, one of them was there for 7 years. When you lose that, it's not just about the fact that the locker room presence and everything like that. It's knowing the playbook down to a T, so that when you face a team like the Broncos who run that hurry-up offense, they can call the plays as well as their coordinator could do at the sidelines. They know all the situations, they've been there before, they know what's more successful than other things the majority of the time. They lost that. They need someone to step up and be a leader. I think Arthur Brown's going to have a big game this weekend against that Cleveland Browns offensive line. They do not look good. I'm going to go with the Ravens by a couple of scores now.
Yeah, I think that's what it's not going to be a close game. I think Baltimore are going to quite handily take care of Cleveland. I think Cleveland, if they play anything like last week, could turn out to be one of the bigger disappointments in the NFL this season, when a lot of people thought they might do quite well.
All right then. You've had control of the early Sunday games. I get the afternoon games, Stephen Edwards. Now, we've already discussed the late game with the 49ers and Seahawks, so I get to go through the afternoon games at my own pace. We already discussed the Manning Bowl as well. Would you like to refresh people's memories of our selections for the Manning Bowl?
If we actually discussed it? Was that last time we discussed the Manning Bowl?
Last night we discussed the Manning Bowl, and we both selected the New York Giants.
I was to say, I've slept since then.
I have not.
No,
I'm a wired mofo, as they say. We both went with the New York Giants, so if you can write that one down as well. Remember to write down the 49ers and Seahawks, how we differentiated on that. The Jaguars Raiders, let's start there with the bum game of the week, which I think is going to be sneaky good. There's going to be some highlight moments that are not so great, and there's going to be some actual highlight moments as well, some ripped off ATR touchdowns. Where are you going with the Raiders and Jags?
I mean, this is potentially the game for the number 1 pick.
It really is.
In the draft this season, at the end of the season.
It's like they might want to lose. It might come back to that tanking thing again.
I tell you what, I think this is going to specifically come down to quarterbacks. I'm going to go with the Oakland Raiders to win this in a particularly bad game that will be potentially decided by field goals. I think Terrell Pryor will have a better game than Chad Henne. Anyone that knows me is a Miami Dolphins fan. I'm not a Chad Henne fan at all. So, I think Terrell Pryor might surprise a few people and have actually a pretty good game for the Oakland Raiders. And they're at home as well. So, yes, without a doubt, I'll take the Raiders to win this one.
I'm going to go with Gus Bradley and those Jacksonville Jaguars, and that's not because they're coming over to the UK, because I think they suck. They truly, truly suck. I'm going to go for Maurice Jones-Drew to have one bounce-back game, because I think he's getting to the stage of being washed up, which I think is sad to say. One of my favourite players since following the NFL, obviously, with the time period I've been following the sport. I love myself some mojo. I think he has one last bounce-back game of a real sort of big game fantasy-wise and real-life-wise. A truly final monster game. The ball gets put in his hands with nearly every touch of the game. Watch out for Denard Robinson. He did absolutely nothing last weekend. Maybe they try and use him a bit more. I think they should do. The offense was so dreadful. Try and use him in the screen game and give him some handoffs in the backfield, and let's see what the offensive weapon can do. I'm going to go with Gus Bradley and them Jags.
Can't see it, but I just can't see it. I can't imagine Chad Henne winning an NFL game.
Alright, then the Lions and the Cardinals, an excellent Sunday afternoon treat, which will just be overshadowed by the Broncos and Giants.
I mean, I called this game yesterday the sleeper game of the week for me. I think if anyone wants to watch something a little bit different apart from the Manning Bowl, I think this is a game to watch in this time period. I think this is going to be a really epic game. I think it's going to be fun to watch the Detroit offense against the Arizona defense. I think that's going to be a hell of a battle. Big fan of Reggie Bush for Detroit. Matt Stafford and Calvin Johnson. I mean, what a tandem them two make. And on the other side of the ball, I think you've got Carson Palmer leading that Arizona offense. It isn't that bad, but I just think Detroit might just have a few too many weapons against Arizona. But this is going to be a very close game. You're looking at maybe a field goal to decide it. So I'll take the Detroit Lions to win this one.
Yeah, I'm going down the late field goal route as well. The Lions actually match up really badly with the Cardinals on offense. If you take the Reggie Bush X factor out of it, I mean, outside of Calvin Johnson, they have no one else to throw the ball to. And the Cardinals are stacked in the secondary as well. The only issue here is that the main matchup in the trenches, that defensive line is just unbelievable. Every time I look at it, I cannot believe how good the Lions have that defensive line. I guess if you suck that much and spend that many top 10 picks on defensive linemen, eventually you do get good. And losing their first round pick this year was a big loss in the Cardinals. Their offensive line is pretty awful. That matchup is going to win this game. I'm going with the Lions as well, Stephen Edwards. So it comes down to the final Sunday afternoon game before we get to Monday Night Football. Those New Orleans Saints who are looking to go 2-0 against the team that lost to the New York Jets, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I'm not a fan of what I've seen of Josh Freeman so far. I saw him in the preseason. I've seen him in the regular season so far. I just really am not a fan at all. Drew Brees has got his usual bevy of options on his side of the ball, and the Saints, when they get that game going, they can score at will at times, and they're an explosive offense to watch. And I think they've got way too much for Tampa Bay to win this game.
I absolutely agree. You know what? This is one of the worst teams in football, this Tampa Bay team. They were so overrated by people coming into this coming into this new season. They looked so bad the other day. They couldn't start anything on offense. Everyone knows it runs through Doug Martin. The Jets just dropped again. 8-9 men down the box against a really good defensive line that the Jets have there. The Jets looked awesome up front on the D-line. They really did not look good, the Bucs. What makes me laugh with them is Greg Schiano. He clearly wants to go to Mike Glennon. And I'm going to tell you now, Greg, just go to Mike Glennon. You clearly want to do it. It'll be an awful decision. Everyone knows I don't rate him as a football coach. I think he's ill-disciplined. I think we saw that the other day with over 100 yards lost on penalties. He wants to go to Mike Glennon. He should just make the switch now because he clearly wants to do it. Just do it and live by it. Stand up and be a proper head football coach. I say that this is almost embarrassing, and Drew Brees can drop a 50 bomb on these Bucs.
I don't think we'll see 50 points, but it could be a little bit out of control.
Final game of the weekend then, Stephen Edwards. Monday Night Football now. Are we predicting this now, or do you want to save this one for Sunday night?
No, we'll predict this one now.
Bengals, Steelers. One word, I think, for each of us on this one.
Yeah, Bengals win this.
There's more than one word. Bengals.
It's Bengals. Bengals will win this quite comfortably.
I completely agree. So Stephen Edwards, there's some disagreement there on the key game as well. There's disagreement. I think just to refresh people's memory, I have flip-flopped from one podcast to the other. I did a podcast yesterday. I picked the Seahawks, and I flip-flopped this day to those San Francisco 49ers, but in my faith in Colin Kaepernick and Greg Roman. Very overlooked, Greg Roman, by the way. Everyone seems to think it runs through John Harbaugh. Very overlooked. Greg Roman has a lot to do with that offense that's pretty spectacular. It's going to be a sensational weekend of football, a sensational weekend continuing of American sport. Ice hockey's in its season, Stephen, not in its full season. Training camp's begun, I believe. This
is it, and so it's just around the corner. We will be having another guest on to do the other part of our NHL preview as we look at the Western Conference, as Matt, our very special guest, on Monday covered the Eastern Conference with us. Going just back to football for a minute, if I was watching football, and I certainly hope to be over the weekend, then for me, on Sunday, I would be watching the Colts versus the Dolphins. I would then be watching the Lions versus the Cardinals, and then the 49ers against the Seahawks. What would you be watching, Mr. Carley?
See, I'm perfectly loaded this weekend with regards to football watching because I didn't have to sit and watch the full Patriots game because that'll be in the books. I'm hoping it's off the back of a win. I'm expecting a win. And therefore I get the full bevy of games. I'm going to be switcherooing between everything. I like to have the red zone up in particular. I'll of course have to go back and watch every single condensed game. I really want to watch this Dolphins-Colts game as well because, you know, my friend and go Stephen Edwards is a Dolphins fan. I'm absolutely in love with AL. I want to see if my prediction of Cameron Wake being in the backfield on every single play will come true because, you know what, I know it will. And I think that it's going to be an awesome game. That's an underrated game because it's going to be Andrew Luck basically single-handedly, and that's not overstating it. People always say that the quarterback has everything to do with it in football, and I disagree with a lot of that. But on this team, he really is the man because they don't have an offensive line. So it's going to be Andrew Luck against Cameron Wake in that defense, and can he step up to it? Can he make decisions in quicker time than quarterbacks usually have to? That's where my main attention will be after I come out from being comatose of the Alabama Texas A&M game. It's going to take me a long time to recover from that one, I think.
Yeah, that's going to be a hell of a game on Saturday night, and it's a good time for people in the UK. As I believe it starts around about 8:30 our time. So if you've got access to the ESPN player, that's where it's going to be. And Mr. Connolly will not be able to be reached for the best part of 4 hours.
No one try and tweet me or text me or email me anything to do with US sports media or this particular program or just general life. I've put my family and friends on notice. There just isn't any point. You're just wasting your time. I'm going to be surrounded by Budweiser and dips and Doritos. That's a product placement plug there. Doritos, give us some free Doritos for this weekend. Surrounded by Budweiser and Doritos. I still haven't received my Texas A&M jersey, which Steven's family, who live out there in Texas, was supposed to have sent over. For some reason, my 2 Texas A&M jersey hasn't arrived for this big game, which is a bit disappointing. But I'll be wearing it in spirit as I cheer on the Aggies towards it's going to be a nail biter, but it's just going to be epic because I just love college football so much.
No, it's going to be one hell of an epic game. Well, we've made our picks, and I shall certainly stick by those. But it wouldn't surprise me if it flip-flopped the other way.
I like that Stephen Edwards is a man of his word. I just flip and flop where my mind takes me. I have no shame in moving from one to the other, but I like that you're a man of your word. You picked the Alabama Crimson Tide. You're rolling with McCarron, Saban, and those boys, and I like that. I admire that in a man. It's time to wrap this one up, Stephen Edwards. I have a New England Patriots game to get myself to go off and watch, and just pray, because I have this weird gut feeling about the Jets tonight, but I know that the sense gene will kick in. I know that Tom Brady's going to eat these guys up, surely.
Oh, I can't see any sort of situation where they don't win this game. I just cannot see it.
Encouraging words, sir. Fantasy football this weekend before we get going. Who have you got this weekend? Do you know who you've got by name, or have you made any important fantasy football decisions? Have you got any tips for the listeners on fantasy football?
Do you know what? I'm going to keep everything close to my chest this week. I'm just disappointing week last week. I don't think maybe our listeners should listen to me from a fantasy football point of view. I lost 2 out of the 3 games I was in, and the only game I won quite a canter. There were some big performances last week from a fantasy point of view. I mean, obviously, I was particularly pleased by Jordan Cameron's effort for one of my teams. If you've got Adrian Peterson, much like my co-host has, then you know what to expect from him. Similarly, if you've got Peyton Manning, you're not going to get that many points again this week. So if you think all of a sudden you're a fantasy football rookie and you've got Peyton Manning in your team and he's logged that many points this week, please don't rely on that from a weekly basis.
Good points well made. Do you want to remind people who you lost to last week in fantasy football?
Somebody. I have no idea, to be fair. It's all in the past. We don't talk about the past. We look ahead to the future.
I have literally just set a fantasy football lineup whilst you've been talking. I just made one bold move. Now you tell me how dumb I am right now. I've started Geno Smith over Ben Roethlisberger.
I actually don't think that's as dumb a move as you're making it out to be.
Thank you, sir, because if it was a dumb move, I wouldn't have made it, because I am the man who wins the fantasy football leagues. I am the self-proclaimed fantasy football guru, Stephen Edwards, approaching what are we at now, about the 140, 150 mark. Let's get out of here then. Let's allow people to go off and enjoy the football this weekend and everything that goes with a wonderful, glorious British and international weekend wherever you are. Some housekeeping before we go. Facebook.com/FirstTakeUK for some exclusive video content and all sorts of stuff. You see the exclusives we get. We brought you some good exclusives today with Gina Mizell. Thank you again to Gina for joining the show. You can find her once more at Gina Mizell, GinaMizell, for more fallout from the Oklahoma State debacle that's going on there. We are at UK First Take. I am at Ollie UKEZ, and my wonderful, glorious co-host, who I shall be seeing on Sunday, at D-Rose UK36.
Thank you, sir. Yes, we will be seeing each other on Sunday when we'll be actively supporting the Hoops Aid event and just having a good time and being a part of something what I think is going to be truly special.
It really is. Final port of call for that. If you want to go to Hoops Aid, which is a charity basketball event full of celebrities, including myself, then you just get in contact us at UK First Take. We'll give you all the necessary details from there, as will Steven. Steven loves doing all that. Check out the website ukfirsttake.com, because like I said at the top of the show, there may be an easier way for you personally to listen to the show, because we have all mediums covered: iTunes, Hipcast, which is a direct stream or download, YouTube, which you can subscribe to as well, get mail updates as soon as the podcast goes live there, or subscribe on iTunes, all sorts of stuff to do. Rate us on iTunes, like us on Facebook. We have to do these things because, like I say, Stephen, help the listeners to help themselves. We've got all kinds of glorious offers coming in for you guys from new sponsors joining the show, and we will get more sponsors, which will give you more offers. The more listeners we get, and the more comments you give on iTunes, and the more likes you have on Facebook, and the more followers on Twitter. So you help us out with that, and it just helps yourself in the long run. Let's get off here, Stephen. At Ollie UKEZ, signing off at UK First Take with at D-Rose UK36.
And it's good night from me, and we will see you on Sunday night.
Go Patriots!